My name is Richard. I'm 63 years old, and I just retired from a 35-year career as a structural engineer. I didn't think I'd be telling this story, let alone to strangers on the internet, but I need to let it out, because if I keep it inside any longer, I think it might actually eat me alive. I've always been a quiet man. Not in the way that people say when they mean antisocial or grumpy. I just prefer to listen more than I talk. My job required precision, calm under pressure, and a level head. Those traits seeped into every other part of my life. I was the guy who fixed things, leaky faucets, broken fences, last-minute school projects. My kids used to run up to me with glue-covered fingers and say, "Dad, help," and I always did. I never missed a birthday, never missed a game, and never let a holiday pass without gifts wrapped in the neatest corners you'd ever seen. When I announced I was retiring, I'll admit, I hoped for something special. Not a parade or anything extravagant. Just a warm dinner, a few heartfelt words, maybe a cake that said, "Thank you, Dad," in sloppy icing letters. My coworkers threw me a send-off at the office, pizza, a funny card, even a framed photo of our team. I stood there holding a slice, looking around at people I'd only worked with for 5 years, and I wondered what my own family had in store. My wife, Sharon, had said cryptically, "Don't worry. You'll get the celebration you deserve." She said it with a smirk that I couldn't quite place at the time. I told myself it was part of some elaborate surprise. She'd always loved dramatic gestures. The week of my retirement, our house was a flurry of activity, but none of it seemed to include me. My wife and our 2 adult kids, Ellie and Max, were constantly whispering, disappearing on errands, and rushing through conversations when I entered the room. I asked once if I should be clearing my calendar, and Ellie laughed, saying, "Just stay out of the way, Dad. You'll ruin it if you snoop." So I didn't snoop. I played along. I let them plan. I let the mystery build. I didn't press, even when Sharon barely made eye contact over breakfast. I figured they were just stressed, trying to organize something big. And when Friday evening came, the day of my retirement, I shaved, wore a blazer, and sat on the couch, waiting. 6 o'clock passed. Then 7. Then 8. The house was silent. Not, everyone is in the backyard hiding silent. Empty silent. I walked through the rooms. Every light was off. No decorations. No music. No signs of life. I checked my phone. No messages. At first, I thought I had the day wrong. I pulled up the group chat we'd had, nothing. In fact, the last message was Sharon reminding Max to pack his sunglasses. Sunglasses? That's when my stomach dropped. I opened Instagram. I'm not a big social media guy, but I'd made an account years ago to keep up with my kids. I hadn't looked at it in months. I tapped through the app and, sure enough, there they were, my wife, my daughter, my son, and even my sister-in-law and her family, posing on a sleek white yacht under a golden sunset. They were clinking champagne glasses, laughing. Max had his arm around some girl I didn't recognize. Ellie was wearing a big floppy hat. Sharon had her feet kicked up on the railing, her head tilted back, mid-laugh. The caption hit me like a gut punch. Finally a trip without the boring old man. I stared at it. I wish I could say I cried. That would have been normal. But I didn't. I just sat there, holding the phone, feeling something sink low and cold inside me. It was like all the breath had left my body, but I hadn't noticed until I couldn't inhale again. They had left me. They planned it. Lied. Told me I'd get the celebration I deserved. And then they got on a yacht and toasted to being free of me. I sat there for hours, just still. The light stayed off. I didn't eat. I didn't call. I didn't even take off my blazer. When I finally moved, it was to get a glass of water. My hands were steady, which surprised me. I kept expecting rage to rise up, but it never did. Just a heavy silence. And under that, a slow, spreading clarity. The next morning, I got up early and began packing. Not out of anger. Just out of instinct. Years of methodical problem-solving kicked in. I took my time, folded every shirt, unplugged every charger, sealed every document in a folder. I wasn't sure where I was going yet. I just knew I wasn't staying here. I left a note on the kitchen table. Nothing dramatic. Just one line. Enjoy the trip. I turned off my phone. Booked a small cabin up north near a lake I used to visit in college. Packed my truck and drove until the city faded behind me and the only sound was gravel under tires. 2 days passed. When I finally turned my phone back on, it exploded. 27 missed calls. Dozens of texts. First from Sharon. Then Ellie. Then Max. Some from numbers I didn't recognize, probably friends or cousins. The tone of the messages shifted with each one. "Dad, where are you? Can you call me? Please pick up. This isn't funny. What did you do? Dad. Answer the phone. It's serious. I scrolled and scrolled. One message from Sharon stood out. You need to fix this. Everyone is freaking out. Call me. And that was when I smiled for the first time in days. Not because I was happy. Not because I wanted to rub it in. But because, after everything, it was finally clear who they expected to clean up the mess. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to. I didn't call. Not immediately. Instead, I closed the cabin door behind me and went outside to sit on the deck, letting the late afternoon breeze wash over me. The lake shimmered in the fading light. Birds chirped lazily in the distance, and the air smelled like pine and wet soil. Peaceful, uncomplicated, nothing like the world I had left behind. When I checked my phone again later that night, the panic had escalated. The texts came in rapid succession, frantic, scattered, and increasingly desperate. Dad, please. We didn't mean it like that. Can you just tell us you're okay? Where are you? Mom's crying. Please, just let us explain. This is getting out of hand. Please come back. A voicemail from Max cracked through my headphones. He sounded agitated. Look, I know the whole thing was not great, but it was supposed to be a family bonding trip, okay? It wasn't personal. It just kind of happened. I don't know why you're acting like this, but we need you to come back. Like now? Things are falling apart here. Falling apart. Of course they were. See, what none of them seemed to remember, or maybe never realized, is that while they were off celebrating freedom from me, I was the one holding everything together. Quietly, behind the scenes. Like always. That yacht trip? The one they were toasting on with their smug little champagne glasses? It was paid for with the shared family travel account, an account they never really looked at because I handled it. It had my name on the bookings, my card on file. And I had called the charter company the morning after their little surprise party and canceled the rest of their scheduled outings. That luxurious island tour? Gone. The reserved private chef dinner? Canceled. Spa day? Not anymore. And the house they all returned to, the one they took for granted, just like they took me, was also under my name. I'd inherited it from my father and paid off the mortgage years ago. Max and Ellie had both moved back temporarily just to save up, and Sharon hadn't worked since the kids were in middle school. The utilities? I turned them off with one phone call. The Wi-Fi? Gone. My name was on that too. It wasn't revenge. Not really. It was just withdrawal. A full and complete withdrawal of effort, of patience, of support, of me. They had made it clear how little I mattered. So I finally believed them. 2 more days passed. On the 4th day of silence, Sharon finally drove up to the cabin. I heard her car before I saw her. Gravel crunching, tires skidding a little as she parked too quickly. She stormed out, face flushed, dressed like she hadn't slept. When I opened the cabin door, she looked like she was trying to decide whether to cry or yell. Are you serious right now? She snapped. You're hiding out in the woods while everything's falling apart back home. I didn't answer right away, just leaned against the doorway and looked at her. Hiding, I repeated quietly. She threw up her hands. You shut off the power, Rick. The water. The internet. Max had to go stay with his girlfriend, and Ellie had a full-on meltdown when she couldn't use her phone. And the boat company said you canceled everything. I did, I said, calmly. Her jaw clenched. Why? Because we didn't throw you a stupid dinner? That was the moment something broke. Not loudly. Not in anger. Just broke. I stepped aside and motioned for her to come in. She didn't. She just crossed her arms and stared at me like I was the irrational one. So I spoke. You said I'd get the celebration I deserved. I began, voice steady. And then you left me alone. Lied to me. Mocked me publicly. Do you know how that felt, Sharon? Do you know what it's like to walk into an empty house on the biggest day of your life and realize your entire family abandoned you on purpose? She shifted uncomfortably, but I kept going. I wasn't angry at first. I just felt stupid, like a child waiting for a party that never came. But then I saw that post. Finally, a trip without the boring old man. That wasn't a slip. That was honesty. She opened her mouth like she was about to respond, but I held up a hand. I've spent my life building a foundation for this family, supporting you, providing, being steady. And the one time I hoped, just hoped, for a little appreciation, you all used it as a punchline. Her voice cracked then, soft and defensive. It was a joke, Rick. It wasn't meant to hurt you. But it did. I let that hang in the air for a moment before stepping back inside. She followed, slowly, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to. She looked around the cabin, her eyes pausing on the fireplace, the framed black and white photo of me at the lake in college, the book I'd left open on the table. "This is where you've been?" she asked, voice smaller now. I nodded. Yes. Thinking. Resting. Being somewhere I feel wanted, even if it's only by the trees and the wind. She sat down stiffly on the edge of the armchair. "Everyone's scared, Rick. They didn't think you'd disappear like this." "I didn't disappear," I said. I stepped away. She was quiet for a long time, then finally whispered, "What do we have to do to fix this?" And that was when I knew the power had shifted. Because for the first time in my entire life, I didn't rush to comfort her. I didn't try to ease the tension or smooth over the cracks. I let her sit in the discomfort. I let the silence stretch. And then, just before I opened my mouth to speak, my phone buzzed on the table. A new voicemail from Ellie. "Dad, please. We need you. Mom's gone to find you, and now we don't know where she is. Please call us. We're sorry." I pressed pause, looked at Sharon, and finally said, "Good. Now maybe you'll start to understand what it feels like to be forgotten." She didn't speak right away. Her eyes flicked to my phone, then back to me, as if she couldn't quite process what I just said. "Rick," she murmured, and for a second, her voice cracked. Not the usual performative waver I'd grown used to over the years when she wanted sympathy, but something raw, something unfamiliar. "I never wanted to hurt you. I swear I didn't think. I mean, I thought maybe you'd be annoyed. I thought you'd laugh it off. You've always been the quiet one, the strong one. I didn't think you'd just leave. That was the problem, wasn't it? They'd all spent so long treating me like I was made of stone that they forgot stone can crack. That silence doesn't always mean peace. That patience isn't the same thing as acceptance." I stared at her for a long moment. "Did it ever occur to you that maybe I wanted to feel celebrated? Not just useful?" She looked down at her hands, twisting her wedding ring in circles like it was a nervous tick. "I don't know how we got here," she whispered. I did. I knew exactly how we got here. It started with 100 little things. Like how the kids always rolled their eyes when I told a story, but Sharon never stepped in. Or how every family photo had me stuck on the edge, half cropped out, holding someone's purse or drink. How Sharon started calling me boring in front of the kids, not with malice, but with a laugh, like it was an inside joke. The thing is, if you hear something often enough, it stops sounding like a joke. It becomes your title. Boring old man. Steady old Rick. The guy who fixes the toilet and pays the bills and never makes a fuss. Well, this was me making a fuss. I finally walked over to the phone and pressed play on Ellie's voicemail. The room filled with her voice, shaking with panic. "Dad, please. Just let us know you're okay. We've been calling everywhere. Mom's gone and now Max is freaking out. And look, we messed up. We get it. Please come back. Please." Sharon swallowed. "Rick, we can't fix this without you." And that was the truth, wasn't it? They couldn't. Because while they had been sipping champagne and laughing at their little joke, I had been the one holding up the scaffolding of this family. I was the quiet beam that supported everything they leaned on financially, emotionally, structurally. They had mocked the beam, painted graffiti on it, cracked it with their neglect. But when it finally gave way, they realized how much weight it had been carrying. I walked over to the fireplace, grabbed the envelope I'd left unopened since arriving at the cabin, and held it up. "This is the paperwork," I said, "to transfer the deed of the house back into a trust. If I sign it, the property is split. If I don't, I keep full control." Her eyes widened slightly. "Why would you?" "I'm not threatening you," I said, quietly. "I'm giving myself time. Time to figure out if I even want to be part of a family that treats me like a ghost until they need something." Her face twisted. "That's not fair, isn't it?" I cut in. "You all toasted to being finally free of me. Now you want the boring old man back." She didn't answer. She just sat there, sinking into the chair like the weight of it all had finally settled on her shoulders. I sat down across from her and let the silence stretch. I wasn't angry anymore. That had passed. What was left was something deeper. A cold, bittersweet acceptance that the man they thought was invisible had finally become what they'd acted like he already was. "Rick," she said again, softer now, almost like she was using my name to tether me. "What do you want me to do?" I looked out the window for a moment, at the lake, the fading light, the line of trees that held no judgment, no demands. Then I turned back to her. "I want you," I said slowly, "to sit here and listen. I'm going to tell you what it's been like, being me. Not once or twice. For years. She blinked. Now. Yes. Now. And so I told her. I told her how I used to stay up until 2 in the morning fixing the furnace just so no one would be cold. How I quietly canceled my fishing trip to pay for Ellie's semester abroad, even though she never said thank you. How I pretended not to hear her complaining about my boring stories at dinner parties. How I smiled when they all laughed at my expense, just to keep the peace. I told her how it felt to be the first one awake, the last one thanked, the one always expected to give but never celebrated. And I told her how it felt, down to the minute, when I sat alone in an empty house in my best blazer on the night of my retirement and realized not a single person in my family thought I mattered enough to show up. When I finished, the room was quiet. Sharon's face was blotchy, her mascara smudged. She looked older than I'd ever seen her. Tired. Hollow. I didn't know, she said hoarsely. I didn't see it. No, I replied. You didn't want to. We sat there in silence. The kind that doesn't need to be filled. The kind that says, this can't be fixed with a hug or an apology. This needs to be earned. Rebuilt. Finally, I stood up and walked over to the door. I opened it, motioning toward the path leading to her car. You should go back. Let them know you found me. She didn't move right away. Then she stood slowly, gathering her purse with trembling fingers. At the door, she hesitated. Will you come home? I looked her straight in the eye. I haven't decided if I will. But you can start by learning to live without me. And with that, I closed the door. Alone again, I returned to the deck, poured myself a glass of water, and watched the sky turn from orange to deep purple. My phone buzzed again, more texts, more calls. I silenced it. For once, they could all wait. I spent the next week at the cabin. No noise. No phone calls. Just the soft lapping of the lake and the occasional rustling of wine through the trees. I cooked for myself, read old mystery novels, went on long walks. It was the first time in years I could hear my own thoughts without being interrupted or dismissed. And it was strange how quickly I adjusted to being alone, not in a lonely sense, but in a freeing, almost exhilarating way. I didn't have to anticipate anyone's needs. I didn't have to tiptoe around sarcastic comments or laugh off jokes made at my expense. I simply existed. And it was enough. Back home, my absence caused a different kind of stir. I hadn't planned to keep tabs on them, but curiosity got the better of me. One evening, I opened a new browser tab, logged in anonymously, and found my daughter's Instagram. The yacht photos were gone, deleted, likely out of shame. In their place were generic selfies and one photo of Max sitting on a crate with the caption, trying to stay positive. Comments from friends asked what had happened. None got a reply. It didn't take long for me to piece things together. Max had moved in with his girlfriend temporarily, but that had gone south within a few days. Apparently, she hadn't been thrilled when he showed up unannounced with a duffel bag and a sulky attitude. Ellie, without Wi-Fi or working utilities at home, had scrambled to find a friend who could let her crash and use their hotspot. Meanwhile, Sharon stayed in the house, stubbornly trying to manage things in my absence. But she wasn't me. The mortgage wasn't due because there was none. But the groceries didn't restock themselves. The electricity didn't magically return. The Wi-Fi didn't come back on. The pool filter clogged. The gutters overflowed. And no one knew how to fix it all. The reality was setting in. They hadn't just been toasting to a vacation from me. They had been toasting to the removal of the glue that held everything together. A week and a half after Sharon visited the cabin, I finally returned. Not with bags or apologies or hugs. Just with a clipboard. I arrived mid-morning. The neighborhood was quiet. I parked in the driveway, walked up to the front door, and knocked, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to make a point. Sharon opened it. Her face was pale, her eyes ringed with exhaustion. Behind her, the house was dim. Half the curtains were drawn. The smell of stale air drifted out. Rick, she breathed. You came back. I'm not here to move in, I said calmly. I'm here to talk. She stepped aside and I entered. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Sadder. The air was thick with unspoken tension. I walked into the kitchen, sat at the table, and opened the folder I had brought with me. This, I said, sliding a document toward her, is a separation agreement. Her eyes widened. You're divorcing me? No, I said evenly. I'm offering you a choice. We separate, formally, for 6 months. I take a portion of the assets and move into a smaller place. During that time, I want you to run this house fully. Budget, bills, maintenance, everything. And I want the kids to do the same. No more allowances. No more invisible support. Sharon blinked. You're punishing us? No, I said. I'm teaching you what life is like without a man you called boring and disposable. She sat down heavily. And after 6 months? We'll revisit. If you understand by then, really understand, we can talk about reconciliation. But if not, then yes, we divorce. And I won't be returning. She looked at me for a long moment, her lips trembling. What about the kids? They're adults. They can choose where they want to be. That afternoon, I met with both Ellie and Max separately. Ellie cried. Not performative tears, but real ones. She said she felt awful. Said she missed me. I believed some of it. But I also noticed her glancing at her dead phone screen every few seconds, fidgeting like someone who wasn't used to discomfort. I told her this was her chance to grow. To become someone who didn't just consume love but offered it back. Max was more defiant at first. You're seriously doing this over a stupid trip? He asked, arms folded. You're seriously still calling it that? I replied. He looked away. Eventually, he admitted the truth. That he was scared. That he didn't think I'd ever leave. That he didn't realize how much I did until it all fell apart. I left them with the same deal. 6 months. No safety nets. No handouts. They had to show me. They valued me as a person, not just a resource. Over the next few months, something incredible happened. Ellie got a job, her first full-time one. She started budgeting. I heard from a mutual friend that she even began volunteering at a local senior center, helping with repairs. Max moved into a small apartment with 2 roommates. He struggled, but he stopped blaming me, stopped complaining. One day, out of the blue, he texted, "Thanks for the tough love. I didn't get it before. I do now." As for Sharon, she changed. Not overnight, not dramatically, but slowly. She started doing things herself. Called the city about trash pickup delays. Found someone to help fix the garage door. Took on freelance work for the first time in decades. She didn't beg me to come back. She just did the work. And I watched. From a distance, but carefully. At the end of 6 months, I returned once more. This time to talk. We sat at the same kitchen table. She poured me coffee. Not a word was said for the first few minutes. Then she pushed a folder across the table, her own. Inside was a journal. Receipts. A handwritten letter from each of the kids. A photo of her fixing the front gate, covered in grease and smiling at the camera. I looked up. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said. "I'm asking for a second chance. Not because I deserve it, but because I want to earn it." I didn't speak for a while. Just let her words settle. Then I said, "You already started. That was 3 years ago. We didn't just resume life. We rebuilt it, brick by brick. Not as the family we used to be, but as something better. Now, every year on my retirement anniversary, we don't throw a party. We spend a quiet weekend at the lake. No phones, no distractions. Just the 4 of us, sometimes more if they bring partners or friends. And every time someone tries to joke about the boring old man, they stop themselves. Because they remember what life was like when the old man finally walked away. And they know now he wasn't boring. He was the foundation. And without him, everything crumbled. But with him, it all held together. Tighter than ever.